All right, lists. A list is a series of items. These can either be run into a sentence horizontally and separated with commas or be stacked vertically and preceded by bullets. Generally, we stack lists vertically for two reasons: to clarify information and to draw attention to it. Clarifying, not brainstorming. Lists are not brainstorming tools or shortcuts for writers. They are communication tools carefully crafted to aid the reader's comprehension. They itemize discrete points that would otherwise be difficult to follow if, for instance, the individual items are long and complex. Now, over here, actually, they're telling you what are lists for. Basically, when we list things, we intend to improve readability. That means we actually try to facilitate readers' process of getting information, right? When he's trying to get the information, we facilitate that. So if we, want things clearer to the reader, especially when we are, presenting series of items, when we are presenting complex information, right, in which some sort of sequencing is involved, we got to use list. So list is different from brainstorming. Keep that thing in when we are brainstorming, basically we can, whatever comes to our mind, we just jot it down. Whereas in list, we need to establish some logical relationship, okay, a sort of logical relationship or some logical relationships among different items. So we got to we have to put them in sequence, right? Okay, so we got to sequencing them, or we got to sequence them for the slip. Okay, lists are not brainstorming. So let's have a look at this example here. The design build contractor shall provide written notice to property owners informing them of the extent and type of work that will be performed on their property, meet with owners to explain what work will take place on their property, and obtain written permission of private property owners prior to proceeding with work on their property, obtain all permits and approvals from municipal and provincial and federal authorities when and where required. Verify the location of all buried and overhead utilities prior to commencement of subsurface investigations. Notify the city of the dates, times that field investigation will be carried out, and provide copies of all reports to the city as soon as they are available. So when we are reading this, basically we are lost, right? Because there are lots of things, there are lots of steps. We don't know which is starting, when, and which follows what. So if we put the same information in the list form, right? Let me scroll down like this. But the list, this sentence is much easier. Follow the design build contractor shall. So all the points have been broken into different, into bullets, right? Okay, for example, the first bullet says provide written notice to property owners informing them of the extent and type of work that will be performed on their property, comma, meet with the owner to explain what work will take place on their property, and obtain written permission of private property owners prior to proceeding with work on their property. Now here it say the design build contractor shall do this. Okay. Now this all was related to property owner, right? Okay, and it was related to uh, you know basically property and the owner. If you just look at the another point, right? It says obtain all permits and approvals from municipal, provincial, federal authority. So this is a different idea. So that's why they have been, broken into two different points. So one idea in one bullet point, another idea in another bullet point, and this is how we have to make lists, right? So the things which are not related, right, they should stand out. Okay, because all of this one, two, and three, all of this is related to design builder contractor, what the design builder contractor should do, right? But all the information which is related to property and owner has been put together in first bullet. The information regarding permits and all that, right, has been put in another bullet. In another bullet, verify the location of all buried and overhead utilities. No, this is a separate point, a separate aspect, right? So it's been it has been put separately, right? Okay. Okay, then let me clear all of this. Okay. Now, if you just look at this one, it says that too often writer creates something like the following, which is really no more than a brainstorming notes. It is very difficult for readers to follow the writer's intent. And after a week, even the writer might have trouble remembering exactly what they intended. So look at this one. What is it? The tunnel ventilation shell satisfy tenability and comfort criteria detailed below in the Blitz Street Tunnel and Blitz Street Station in the following functional modes: normal operations, congested operations, fire emergency operations. Passive and active systems shall include train movement, fan systems. Okay, if you just look at this, it seems like these are just, uh, writer's thoughts, right? Okay, and probably they do not communicate much, right? I'll show you the improved version, then you might understand it better. Let me mark some of the points over here. Okay. Provide controls to operate the fans remotely from the operation control center. Operations shall be integrated and Blitz Street Station's two-stage fire alarm system. Allow this, provide the following, then again plan room requirements, and then all the points related to that have been put together. Now, if we just move on to the better version, so it says that the above is not a proper list, right? So it's not a proper list. These are just, writer's thoughts put together. It is a stack of point form thoughts. These items are neither logically nor grammatically parallel. So they are separate ideas that need to be developed in separate paragraph that anyone can understand on the first reading. So this is the separate idea. This is the separate idea. This is the separate idea. The tunnel ventilation shall satisfy tenability, comfort, smoke extraction. So look at the parallelism over here within the Bleeth Street tunnel and Bleeth Street station. So if we just look at this thing in the above version, the tunnel ventilation shall satisfy tenability and comfort criteria detailed below in this tunnel and this. So we don't see any parallelism over here, right? We don't know the following functional modes: normal operation, congested operation, fire emergency operation. So how they are linked with this one, right? We don't know whether tunnel ventilation shall have this or these are separate points. So that's why they all are mixed up, right? It seems like the writer has just jotted down his points while brainstorming or while putting his thoughts into the onto the paper, right? Okay, let me remove this one. Now, if you just look at the second point, it says tunnel ventilation shall consist of passive or active air movement during normal, congested, and fire emergency. So, all the related points, right? For example, passive and active air movement, right? When they are to be passive and active during normal, congested, and fire emergency operations. Now they all have been put together. They have been linked in a way that they sound logical now, right? Earlier, when they were put in the list form, okay, which was actually not a list, rather it was a sort of brainstorming, right? So we couldn't figure out any sort of logical relationship between them, right, or among them. The ventilation fans system components shall include fans, cylinders, dampers, ducts, grills, ventilations, shafts, controls, and all electrical components, including electrical infrastructure linked to two separate sources of power. So, this is how they have done. They have like divided them into different paragraphs, right? So the information which is related has been put together in one paragraph, and the information which is not related has been put into another paragraph, and this is how they have organized the list, right? So list doesn't mean that you brainstorm. Basically, that's the main idea over here. Okay, use lists to enhance clarity. Don't use them when they muddy it, right? So that means don't use list when you feel that it's going to make things complex rather than improving the readability. Drawing attention and creative work tools. The second function of list is to draw attention. Let me use the annotation here. Okay, the second function of list is to draw the reader's attention to key information and thereby create work tools. Just like headings, bulleted lists are formatted to stand out. Any information which you want reader to read, right, or pay attention to, you basically, you use bulleted, lists for that, right? For example, there are number of paragraphs running in the text, okay, fine, and then you want something which so, just want reader to stop for a while and read because that's something important, right? And it has sequencing, it requires sequencing, and there is an order there, right? Or there are steps involved, right? So you should use bulleted lists, right? They are intended to create border of white space and feature large black graphical elements called bullets to direct the reader's attention. In effect, bulleted lists are, I think it should be, in fact, bulleted list star graphics and like headings are one of the first things readers notice on the page. Now, sometimes I think this is what we learned earlier also, that when we create a document, right, we actually maybe creating it for multiple audiences, right? Okay. Even in that case, when you put the things which should stand out, in bulleted lists form, right? Okay, then of course, people who are just skimming, right, or who are skimming the information, right, they might, stop at the relevant part, right, okay, and read it, right, because that stands out, that may draw their attention, okay, and they are likely to read if they find it relevant to them, right? So have a look at this one now. Let me scroll down. Now, these are running paragraphs, and here's something which the writer wants to stand out. He has used, bulleted list. Look at this also. Here, what the writer wants multiple things to stand out. So he has used bulleted list. So we can see that there are white spaces over here. Let me use this annotation once again. So we can see over here white spaces, right? Okay, here also, wherever, right, bullet forms or bullet lists have been used, we can create white spaces and they do stand out, right? Now let's go ahead. The next topic is how to punctuate lists. This is another important and interesting topic, rather. Let me clear all of this first. Full sentences list. If the items are full sentences, punctuate them as full sentences. So if you just look at over there, criticism leveled at wind turbines include the following. They contain a high level of embodied energy. It's a full sentence, so you got to put full stop in the end. Remember, if you are using full sentences, is that clear? Keep that thing in mind. Partial sentences list. If the lead in sentence and the item form a single sentence, punctuate the list as single sentence. Don't use colon at the end of the lead in. Now, what is lead in? Let me show you. But use end punctuation at the end of the last item. Don't use initial caps or end punctuation for the item because they are not stand-alone sentences. Now, this is something really important, and you got to understand it because sometimes what happens that people they just whatever they feel like they use that the punctuation depending on their feelings and all that, right? So if the list and lead in form a single sentence, punctuate it as one. So criticism leveled at wind turbines include. Now, this include shows that here this sentence continues. A high level of embodied energy, no full stop required because this is the continuation of this lead sentence. Now, this is called lead sentence, right? High level of embodied energy, potential birds strikes, poor aesthetics, the relatively high cost of energy production, and you put the full stop in the end. Why? Because this finishes the lead sentence basically, right? So instead of putting all of these things in the sentence using comma, you have broken these chunks, right? And you have put them into or written them in the form of bullets, right? Okay, and that's why the full stop has to come in the end. You're not going to put full stop here, neither here nor there, right? Nowhere except in the end, right? And you're not going to use colon also, right? Okay. You could let me scroll down. Criticism leveled at the wind turbines include. This is another way to do it, right? You can put comma, comma, but here you have to after comma the last item when you're closing, right? You got to put comma before the last item, and you have to write end. So if you want to use punctuation, commas particularly, you have to put end before the last item. Excuse me. Now let's talk about shopping list. If the items are nouns, if the items are nouns, let me use the annotation. Items are noun phrases instead of sentences, but don't complete the lead in, sorry, not lead in to form a single grammatical sentence. Use a colon at the end of the leading, but don't punctuate the items except for the period that ends the sentence. These are your standard shopping or laundry list. Officially, these are called fragment lists. That means they are not full sentences, right? Now, cite issues that are of particular concern, and then you have put colon over here, right? Because the rest of items are being written in fragments, right? The lack of temporary banisters on stairways and upper level window opening, the burning of waste vinyl siding on site, the lack of temporary toilets, the consumption of alcohol, and the smoking of illicit substances during work hour. What you really need to understand over here is the use of noun phrases. This is a noun phrase, this is a noun phrase, this is also a noun phrase, this is also a noun. All of them are nouns. So you cannot have a verb over here. So the lack of temporary banisters on stairways and upper level windows opening, after that you cannot say it burns, right? uh let's suppose, yeah, it is the waste vinyl siding on site. You cannot say that. You cannot start off with another item, the subject or a verb or an adjective. You got to have a noun over here, a noun here, a noun here. Otherwise, it would not be parallel. So all nouns should be presented or written vertically. So every other fragment, should start with a noun here, right? It should not have a verb. It should not have, any other form uh, category of, word or class of word, right? Okay. Don't capitalize the items unless, of course, you are listing proper nouns, right? So if they are proper nouns, then you can capitalize. Otherwise, you should not. So tools required to complete these instruction: colon, Robertson three screwdriver, because it's a proper noun. It's been capitalized. That's fine. 4 mm Allen wrench. Wrench is a common noun. This is a capital noun. Sorry, proper noun. Standard hammer and pinking shears. So over here, these all are the names of, what, things, right? So that's why they are parallel. All of them are nouns. They can be put, together vertically, right? There is no harm. But we cannot use any action word over here. We cannot use adjective. We cannot use preposition. We cannot have another sentence or a clause over here. Why? Because we have put colon over here, right? And we got to have fragments, right? And fragments with the similar kind of phrases, right? Like all of them are to be noun phrases or nouns or verbs or adjectives, right? They got to be parallelism over here. Now let's go ahead. Numbered list, lettered list, nested list. Now, this is also a very important thing which you need to understand. Let me use the annotation here. Lists may be formed using bullets, numbers, or letters. However, bullets do not simply sequence or order, whereas numbers and letters do. That means bullets do not imply sequence. Numbers, if you're putting numbers 1 to 3, they imply that there got to be a sequence. So bullets may not have any sequence also, right? And so numbers and letters, they actually are used to imply, to tell, right, that there is some sort of, sequence involved, right? In preparation for obtaining a copyright clearance, collect the following information: author's or editor's full name, exact title, including journal title if applicable, edition this, publisher this, city of publication, and blah blah blah. Always use numbered list for sequential instructions. So if you want that this should happen first, then this should happen, then this should happen, then this should happen. So you got to put numbers or letters. Is that clear? So if you don't do that and there is a sequence involved, right, then the reader might get confused about it, right? Or he may not follow the sequence or understand the sequence. So it's better you use number when the sequence is involved. Let me scroll down. Okay. Numbers or letters indicate that these actions must be carried out in a specific order. If the listed items are not actions, the number indicate a specific ranking, like a top 10 list, right? So to remove the motor, follow these steps. So number one, remove this, slide this, remove this. Now, if I just scroll it down, you can see that all of them are steps, okay, and they are to be followed in a specific order, right? Use bulleted list for secondary nested. non-sequential list. Beneath a numbered or lettered list items, use lettered list for secondary nested sequential list beneath a numbered list item. Now, what does that mean? It's pretty simple. What's happening over here? To remove the motor, follow these steps. So we know that this is the first step, right? Okay. And then, so this is, the step, and then the first step has been numbered over here, right? Now what is happening over here? Remove the two bottom screws, remove the two middle screws, remove the two top screws, right? Now over here, if we just look at this thing, like these steps, right, are, this steps has been broken into some short, steps, but they are not sequential. So if they are not sequential, they are non-sequential, you got to use bullet for that, right? So either you remove the two top screws first, or then you remove the two middle screws, and then you remove the two bottom screws, hardly matters. So there is no sequential thing is involved here, right? So these are non-sequential items, right? Okay, no sequence is required here, right? Okay, then number two, this is the second step, right? Because this is a sequential, right? That's why they have numbered it, or they have used the number for that. Then number three, this is also an important step, right? Okay, they have numbered it, but then we have A, B, C, and D. Now what is this A, B, C, and D? This is secondary sequential. That means within this step, there are other steps which are to be sequential. So these are three broad steps, and within the third step, or under the third step, we have further steps involved. That's why we have used lettered over here, right? We have lettered them. We have used letters over here, right? So if any step has further steps, right, and you have used a number for that step, right, then the further steps are to be mentioned using letters like A, B, C, D. All right. Okay, now let's go ahead. Just wait for a while, it's getting stuck. Okay, don't use more than three levels of hierarchy in a list, or it will become too difficult to follow. Now this is something very important. Although not technically incorrect, it is bad form to place bullets under bullets. Right? Usually, a little rewriting will solve the problem. For example, provide a digital alarm status signal for the following devices. Okay, rectifier, diode, temperature, DC control, reverse current, transformer, pilot, wire, winding temperature can become. Provide a digital alarm status signal for the following devices: rectifier, diode, temperature, DC control, and reverse current, transformer, pilot wire. So because you can, like, put all of some items together using comma, right? And then another two items you can put in the end. Now why is it so? Because rectifier is the broader term, and within that term we have other items, right? So this is a broad item, and within that item, right, we have sub items. So what we have done, that instead of using bullets for the sub items, we have put them, or shown them using commas. Is that clear? And the other broad items have been written separately. All right. Okay. Or you can do it this way: provide a digital loudspeaker signal for the following devices: rectifier, diode, rectifier temperature, rectifier DC control, rectifier reverse current, and then other separate items over here, right? So the related items, either they can be put together, right, okay, using commas, or you can use the term again and again with the sub items, okay, and you can put all of them in one sequence. Okay, if you write numbered or lettered list in sentence form, use parentheses instead of periods to set up the numbers or letters so that it won't look as though you are using end punctuation. Do not use bullets in a sentence form list. For example, here, a passive thermal home design requires careful consideration of four factors, colon, number one. We are talking about sequential, information, the structure's orientation in relation to the sun. Number two, the area of glazing in relation to the structure square footage. Now, see, they are using comma over here. They are not using, end period, first of all. And number three, the thermal mass of the structure. And number four, shading by the structure, eaves, and by the landscaping trees. So, what have they put in the parentheses? Numbered or letter list in sentence form. Use parentheses instead of period to set of the numbers or letters so that it won't look as though you are using punctuation. So they have using parentheses over here, right? To set of numbers, right? And of course, when you're talking about letters, right? So it seems like this is the sub part of this. So they have put, sorry, they have put, uh, they have put it basically, in parentheses, right? Okay. Now, Microsoft Word, this you just can have a look at this one, right? These are some functions. Being computer students, you can understand it uh, very easily, right? These are some options available which allow you to make lists and all that on computer using Windows. Okay. Now, I'm stopping here and I would like you guys to ask questions before I start up with another topic.